Welcome to Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly with host Nancy Becker on Global Voice Radio. Nancy and her guests will share tips and recommendations on moving forward in your life and business now and not waiting till pigs fly. Here's your host, Nancy Becker.
Welcome, everybody, to Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly, conversation with and for business owners who are seriously looking for strategies to increase revenues, add more clients to their email lists, and fulfill their dreams of success. No matter who you are or what you do in life, you will find from time to time that there is something, you may not know what, but something holding you back from achieving that which you desire. Some call it fear. For others, it may be procrastination or distraction or some other form. But we all have to deal with this sooner or later. If you want to succeed, however, in both business and life, you have to deal with these internal thoughts and emotions. Today, we will be talking with Carol Davies, a success coach. Carol assists women to create extraordinary transformation in their personal and professional lives through coaching and training to reach their potential. Carol's background in large international organizations, such as 22 years with the United Nations, have given her a unique skill and appreciation for working with people from many different cultures. Combined with her training and expertise in holistic healing and energy therapies, emotional freedom technique, Reiki, and NLP, gives Carol a unique view of the ways in which the body spirit is able to heal itself. Her passion is to teach groups and individuals how to be proactive in getting what they want in both their personal and professional lives. By understanding the deep structure of an issue, then breaking it down into manageable size components, Carol's able to facilitate learning while participants are having fun and experiencing success. Carol's strength is helping women entrepreneurs to be the best they can be while having fun and finding their true passion to follow in life. Hey, good afternoon, Carol. How's the weather in Canada today?
Well, we are having warmer weather, and it's a bit overcast but sunny, and it looks like we're going to have quite a bit of rain. But the wonderful thing is, up to about a week and a half ago, we were still having snow, and it was cold. So I think the weather is definitely on the improvement.
Great. Yeah, I think we've finally gone into a little bit of springtime. Here in Michigan, it's gone from winter to summer, and now it's back to spring again. But as far as I'm concerned, it can stay just like that, except for we're having a lot of rain too. But I also notice that has a lot to do with how you feel and things that you want to do and the whole mindset on getting up in the morning, don't you think? The weather plays a big part in things.
Oh, for sure. And especially here now, the days are starting to get a little bit longer. And I noticed that people, they're smiling more, they seem more relaxed. Whereas in the winter, everybody is, much more withdrawn into themselves, not as pleasant. And I really do feel that has, way that we see each other and treat each other.
Yeah, I know for me it's months and months of sitting in the dark and dreary. Just I don't want to get up and go to work or do anything. And when the sun's shining, it's just you want to jump up and down and really get at it. So I'm glad the sun is here and maybe we're on our way to summer. Yay. Carol, I know that you've spent a great deal of time working with and understanding the mindsets of people for both business and life in general. Give us, if you would, a bit of background on what brought you to where you are today.
Okay. I originally trained to be a librarian, so I was very much interested in dealing with organization of materials, how to find things for people, how to get that exact piece of information people wanted to get. And that got me on the road to doing training seminars and other things, because I found I was very good at research and able to put together, courses and also explain things to people. When you work in a library, especially, when they come to an information desk, people ask you something, they say, I want to get everything on, for example, my dog. Now, that sounds okay to them, but I found I had the skills to sort of guide people into being more explicit or really honing in on what it was they wanted, whether it was information for, a project or in working with clients, not the big overall things, but what are the real important things for people that they want to focus on. And I had an excellent opportunity to do this on a different sort of basis, because I started out in libraries, and then I was very lucky. I worked in Ottawa for a few years, our nation's capital, and I worked in 2 different languages, French and English. And I noticed that when I dealt with people in one language, they responded in a certain way, and in the other language, it was different. So you had to understand the background a little bit, where someone was coming from, especially if it was in business, because someone might ask you a question or ask you to get information together for a project, and sometimes you just had to sit there and listen. Some people like to be listened to, and then others, you need to be more like question this, question that, why, give me more, give me more. And I really got to take that to the next level when I worked in New York, because I was very, very fortunate to work for the United Nations. And I worked with people from all over the world, many, many different cultures, many, many languages. The UN itself officially works in 6 languages. So it's not to mean that all the employees had to, do that, but you had to work in at least 2 or 3. And working that closely with people in, teams or on projects was very, very eye-opening, because people from a certain part of the world work in one way. People from another part of the world work in a different way. We here in North America are very much action-oriented. Let's get it done. Let's find out what we want to do. Where some other cultures, they are more laid back. You have to set up the social niceties first. I'm thinking, for example, of some very lovely people I worked with that were from Japan or China, and a totally different approach to business, to socializing, to whatever. And I found that I was working with a lot of people because I had to give courses to people from different parts of the world, and they'd all be in one group. So this was even more challenging, because you couldn't go with just one preconceived notion. So I learned to be a lot more general, but also to listen. I had to get rid of my North American thing of, very direct and let's go, go, go. And it was fascinating to work there. I was so fortunate.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I mean, I know I lived in Europe for a while, and I hear what you're saying, because I've seen it happening in my own life when I was living in France. So, and listening is such a valuable and important part of being a coach and of working with people and helping them to try to move forward. I think you hit it right on the head with that term, listening. That's great. I know that when we're talking about business in particular, and not just in life, but in business as well, that oftentimes people resist change and they don't want to do things differently. And I think listening comes in very importantly here, because you need to be able to, shall we say, listen to maybe things that aren't being said in order to find out what is causing someone to resist that change. You know, we default to habits and patterns that keep us stuck a lot. And can you maybe share a bit about what you see happening here with this resistance to change, and what holds us back from success oftentimes?
Well, that's a big part of the things that I work with people in my coaching practice, because I call myself a success coach because I'm very much dedicated to working with clients to identify the areas, like you said, where they feel stuck or they're not making progress. And I find that it's very, very important to, as you said as well, to listen and to try to get to the root of maybe what caused the, let's say, fear of change. Because a lot of the reason we don't want to change is because, as you said, we like where we are. And if we change, that opens up a whole new pathway into the unknown. And normally we feel more secure and happy if we know where we're going. If we're making change, many times you really don't know where you're going, and you may have to change the way that you react to certain situations. Or if you're going to make a success of your life, you may realize maybe I need to leave a certain job, or maybe I'm in a relationship that has run its course. So the change in that might be to go in a different direction. It doesn't have to be that abrupt, but it has to come from within the person themselves, that they want to make the change. It is not possible to say to somebody, change, give them a strategy, if they're not committed to maybe what you suggest or what you both come up with ideas. The person has to genuinely want to go a different direction or improve themselves. And if you don't have that commitment, it is not going to change. You just keep doing what they say, the same behaviors give you the same results. And if they're not giving you success, then it really is hitting your head against the wall. If you don't wish, there's no point in working with a coach or, say a counselor, if you're really not committed to making change.
Absolutely. And I know that there are a lot of different types. You mentioned the word fear. And I think a lot of everything that we go through in a day's time is a fear of some sort. But I know that there are different types of fear. There's the fear of failure. There's a fear of success. The fear of change, all these different kinds of fears. Do they all have the same sort of root reasons behind them, or are they different, and do you have to try to figure out what type of fear someone is feeling in order to get them to move on from that?
Well, I tend to find that, I think we call them different kinds of fear, but they have sort of a root cause in that what we want to change is something we don't necessarily want to look at. The root of fear, I think, can come from when we're very young, from our childhood, the way we were raised, the way we were taught to, the environment we grew up in. Some parents are able to raise children to be very confident, very self-assured, believing in themselves. And yet there are others, the family dynamic is, oh, don't do that, because something bad will happen. Or they speak very negatively, to the child. And depending on your age, they say around the age 5 or 6 is when you start forming the internal ways that you're going to react in life. So if you constantly hear criticism of you, or you're not doing this right, or um, you are not valuable, or you're a burden to me, this is not going to be messages that set you up to have a lot of self-confidence. And you really need to have confidence in yourself to get past fear. And if you don't, that's where people have the most problems. So you can have various fears, but I really believe that the basis of it comes from when you're very young and how you're raised, the experiences you go through. Like you might be in a family that says, oh, well, like be seen but not heard. You have nothing valuable to contribute, or your brother or sister always does this better than you. These sorts of things, you might forget about it and it goes down internally. But when you're an adult, you might get into a situation that suddenly triggers that memory. For example, you might get a boss that reminds you of your mother or father and the way they treated you. And no matter what you do, you don't please them, or you don't do something right, or they say something that seems to push those invisible buttons. And it's like you go back to being that 5 or 6 year old child. And what do you do? And you're an adult, but inside you've still got this hurt child.
Absolutely. And I can give you another example of real life that shows exactly what you're talking about. When I was in college, I had to write a dissertation, and I actually went to Princeton University and to Educational Testing Services, the place where they do the ACT and the SAT tests to get into college. And I was doing research with families eating dinner at the dinner table. And what I was doing is coding for the communication between the parents and the children. Things like, the parent would say, eat your vegetables. And the kid might say, well, why? I don't like them. They don't taste good. And the parent might say, just do it because I told you to. Or, well, they're good for you and they're healthy and they'll make you grow, and it all depended. And what we were getting at the end of this, watching the people and their conversations, was to see how kids grew up representing violence. And the ones that were told things like, well, just eat them because I told you to, actually did much more violent things when they were older than the ones who had someone explaining to them, well, this is good for you, it's healthy. So you're right on. Absolutely. That's exactly what I believe is true too, is how you're raised as children makes a lot to do with how you act as adults. But there's other things that we deal with as adults that can slow or halt our progress when we're talking about business success. And they're not fears, but I often hear when I'm talking to my clients things about, but I get distracted. I go out starting to do something, and then I think, oh, I have to do the laundry, or the phone rings and I have to answer it. How do you deal with distractions? What do you think are some of the things that we can do to cut back on allowing distractions or procrastination to keep us from moving forward?
Well, when I work with clients who present this sort of, say, problem or thing that they feel holds them back, I try to get them for a period of at least a week or two to write down what they're doing in their day. And, first of all, to make a list of priorities that they want to do that day. It could be some, things on the job, it could be things in personal life. And then, just make little notes through the day and find out what happened. Did they make any progress on it? Or if they were getting to a point where they thought they might succeed at doing, something positive, all of a sudden, like you said, they got distracted or they went on to something else that was not as important. So it's like keeping a journal, just for about a week or two and noting them down and how did, that person feel at the time when, say 2 or 3 incidents happened that maybe were not positive, or if they were positive. And then normally after that, we get together and they would send, write something up and send it to me. And then we'd go over that and see. And I found that in some of the cases, people use procrastination because they want to feel like they're in control. And by staying in a certain area and not advancing and then therefore opening yourself up to success or change, if they procrastinate, then they also set themselves up for, if they have that internal thing of like, I am a failure, they set themselves up automatically to fail. And when that happens, it reinforces that maybe buried internal belief, and it keeps them feeling comfortable. I know it sounds a little bit odd, but it's a comfortable behavior. Whereas trying to make change and going forward to a success can be frightening, and people like to feel safe. So procrastination is also another way it can keep us feeling safe.
That's interesting because I see procrastination as probably being one of my biggest problems. I'll say, oh, I've got another couple of hours before I have to do this. As long as I get it done today, it's okay. But, let's watch TV for an hour and then go do this. And it can be very frustrating because on the one hand, I'm going, I want to get this done. I've got so much to do. But then you still just kind of sit back and procrastinate. Thoughts on what I can do to kick my butt and get me to work?
Well, this comes into an area of which I call developing success habits, because you've probably heard that if you want to change a behavior, it takes a certain amount of time of doing it differently than, say, the way you were doing that was not succeeding. For example, you might decide that you don't have enough time for yourself in the morning. So you then decide to get up 15 minutes or 30 minutes earlier and take that span of time and devote it just for yourself, to get centered, maybe make a plan what you want to do in the day, know where you're going. Whereas in the past, you would just jump out of bed, sort of throw some clothes on and rush off without having an idea. I mean, this is for people who like to sort of plan and know where they're going. Maybe they didn't take the time. So I advise, people who maybe want to make it's not a big change, but if you get up 15 minutes or 30 minutes earlier, it's making a commitment to yourself that you are the most important. And also it's being what we call selfish. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means self and then ish, meaning I am focusing on myself first because I need to have that inner strength and calm in order to know where I'm going. If I feel like I'm making progress and I'm happy and centered in myself, then I have a lot more that I can give to other people, or get better ideas, get more creative, because I'm not feeling like I'm always running behind, which to me, procrastination puts up these big barriers, and because sometimes we like feeling miserable. I know it sounds strange, but that's the norm. And to feel good is frightening. So you'd rather stay in the habits of procrastination, which some of which you mentioned. You don't get things done on time. You get distracted. You don't do proper research. Whatever it is. Say in a business project, and when you finally get the light bulb going off that you're doing this to yourself, nobody else is. It is a personal choice. But you could make a personal choice to be different, to change, and then take one small aspect and work on it and see progress. And then, oh, that's good. And then if there's still some other areas that are not quite, right, take them on. But I always suggest to people, go slowly. Try something several times, at least, a week or two. In fact, I've read that it takes up to 30 days to instill a new habit so that it becomes more automatic. So these are the types of things, you don't pick a big area in your life first. Pick something that's manageable, that you think is possible to make some progress or change, say, within that 30 days. Keep track of what is happening. And if you succeed at that, it is amazing how that is like an injection of success into you. Your mental state changes. Your body changes. You feel so good about yourself.
Yeah, again, I totally agree. I know that's one of the reasons why in the mastermind program that you are part of, we have a Facebook page where we post small wins that we do over the week. And when I know for myself, when I put up something that says I actually accomplished this, I feel wonderful. And I kind of don't ever want to say, well, I didn't do what I said I was going to do, because that would make me feel really bad. But there's also this, you got to post once a day kind of thought. So if you don't post, then, you feel really bad about it. So you go around in circles. But when you do accomplish something that you've been saying you need to accomplish, it is a wonderful feeling. So how do you center yourself? How do you get yourself to the point where you can stop the procrastination? You can look those fears in the face and say, I'm not gonna deal with you anymore. Go away. This is all in my head and it's not true. I mean, are there things like meditation? What are some of the things that you can do to eliminate these problems?
Well, one of the things that I've done a lot of work on myself and with other people is with the concept of mindfulness. And that means being completely aware of what you're experiencing right now, not worrying about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, because the past is gone and the future is not here yet. In fact, you create your future from what you do right now. There's a very well-known author, his name is Eckhart Tolle, and he wrote a book called The Power of Now. And that is an excellent book for people to read. And it just talks about how important it is to be aware, like, of everything around you. I had an interesting discussion with a friend yesterday about that. And they said, I try to be mindful when I eat my meal. I've been rushing around and then suddenly I take 15, 20 minutes and I'm having a really great steak, he said. He said, I now take the time to slowly enjoy that, to savor it. I knew I was looking forward to it. And, he just looked at how nice it was and the flavor and, taking more time. And that for him was being mindful. And other people can say, oh, well, maybe it should be a bit more philosophical or whatever. But it's really taking the time to slow down and be aware what you're thinking right now, taking a bit of time maybe to connect with nature, go for a walk if you need to calm yourself, or other things that people do too is they will keep a little journal with them, and they'll write down at different times of the day how they're feeling, what is happening, and that gets them to focus on exactly right now, and then look it over maybe a day or two later and see some patterns or see where things seem to be working. And with you mentioning about meditation, that is a very, very important thing that people can do. And it does not have to be a formal thing where you go somewhere in a quiet room and you take 30 minutes to an hour and maybe listen to nice music and try to have your thoughts not be chattering at you. You can do sort of a mini meditation in 5 to 10 minutes by just sitting somewhere, quiet, not in the midst of things. Do deep breathing from your diaphragm. Breathe in, breathe out. Listen to yourself as you're breathing, and just try to feel relaxed. And this is good also for stress relief. But the other thing that some people like to do too is maybe even at lunchtime, go for a 10 or 15-minute walk somewhere where there is a bit of nature, like a park or somewhere, it's not just concrete and traffic. Slow down, look around, appreciate and say how wonderful this is. And also be aware of all the good things you have in your life, that you're grateful, being grateful. That is a big part too of helping, I think.
What's one of the things that I had jotted down here as a note was that in the long run, it looks like to me that much of our success or our failure in business and in life, it comes down to self-awareness. And it seems to me that mindfulness is part of self-awareness, but that there's a difference. What do you see as the difference in those two terms?
Well, to me, they're sort of interlinked, but self-aware is really having the ability to know yourself and what is important to you and what you're capable of, and taking responsibility for your life. Because it's very easy if things don't turn out, you can blame this person or this circumstance. But if you're self-aware, you take responsibility for everything you do, like everything you think, everything you do is important, because, or even what you say, because it impacts other people or other situations. So if you are on a path of being unkind or unhelpful and negative, it is going to come back at you. Whereas if you try to be more upbeat, positive, confident, that will start having things happen in your life that you really want to. So there's a lot of things, the balance between negativity and positivity in a person's life. And only we as an individual can know, like, people can say like, oh, you're very negative or you're very positive. Well, that's all right, but you have to know in yourself how you feel. not what other people are telling you. And it's the same thing like if you're, say, in a career that's not right for you, if you're doing it because you're doing it for other people. You know, your father and mother said, oh, wouldn't it be great if you're a lawyer? Or, you know, you become a doctor or whatever. And let's say you like working with your hands or you like cooking. Are you going to be happy if you don't know what makes you, you know, feel excited and joyful? That's part of being self-aware. And if you know that, then your personal life and your work life should really be aligned along that path and not something that somebody, you know, thought would be great for you. You can always try, but if you find you're not happy, then when you're self-aware, it's up to you to take the responsibility to find out why, because nobody made you that way. Our life is made up of our own choices.
Wow, that's so true. It really is. So where do we start as a person who has a business or who's thinking about starting a business and just can't do it for whatever reason? Where do they start? What are the things that they should look at and try to figure out in order to get them moving forward?
Well, I always advise people to, first of all, if they want to start a business, do they really want to do a business or do they want to work for somebody? Because it's two different things. Everybody says it's great to have your own business, and yes, indeed it is. But there are some people who perhaps are not comfortable doing that because that could mean maybe working a lot on your own, being very solitary. Whereas there are some people that function better in a group as part of a team. So you need to be very clear in your mind, which type of person are you? And there's benefits to being both. It's neither bad nor good to be one or the other. Now, you and I are solo entrepreneurs out of choice, but we've both also worked in large corporations and, you know, other things. So we've got that sort of background. But if you get someone, say, who's a bit younger and they really don't know what they want to do, it's also good maybe to go to like a career counselor and take some assessments about your personality, your strengths, and get clear on what those are. And then if you're not quite sure what kind of business, take a look. Do you like doing things? Are you good with numbers? Are you good with conceptual things? Do you like doing projects? Do you like managing things? If you don't, maybe you could work, you know, in tandem with somebody, maybe a partner. And, you know, the two of you, if you have similar goals, could get a business going up together, because the worst thing to do is to feel alone. And then the other thing, once you're clear on what it is that you're really good at, what you feel excited about, what areas out there, what gifts do you have, what services or solutions do you have to offer that other people would want? And you need to really make a business plan too. This is all sort of part of it, because you might have the greatest idea in the world, but if there's no one out there who wants to buy it, it's very disheartening to go through all that, you know, months and months, and then suddenly nothing happens. Because so many small businesses that start up, I think only about 10% succeed. And you have to do a lot of research and planning, talking to people to find out, is what I want to do viable, both financially, personally, and for you emotionally. And then if that's the case, get get connected in community. Like find a circle of friends or some business people that can be like a network for you with, you know, ideas and advice, or just, you know, to make social contact with. And another thing that's important is to get a mentor or an advisor who maybe has done what you want to do and understands where you're going, and they know that if it's something new for you, they'll be there to help and advise, not telling you what to do, but someone that you can feel supported by. It's very, very important to have friends and family also behind you, seeing your vision and, going there with you. You don't want to be around people saying, oh, that's not going to work, or you're never going to be a success at that. Stay away from negative people. Go with the ones that are positive and supportive. And even if it's just a small networking group, make sure to go out regularly. And it's not just what you can get from it, but it's also what you can contribute to other people as well. You can listen to them. You can give them ideas, and then they may reciprocate by giving you, the same courtesy. It's just really common sense.
Wonderful. Now let's shift. We're getting close to the end of our time, so let's shift a little bit and tell us a little bit about who your ideal client is and what you do for them and how your business operates. Let us know about the passion motivator.
Well, my group of ideal clients are women entrepreneurs who have come to a point in their working career where they want to make changes in their life. Their business is perhaps not working, or they're not excited about it anymore. And that's what I do, is I work with women who are at that point where they really are committed to making a change. And I go through a process with them similar to what I was saying of, finding out through questionnaires and talking and making profiles of what are they really good at, what excites them, what do they see themselves doing. I always say, like, well, what would you like to do 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 5 years from now? Get a vision for them to see where they want to go. And then once we get that diagnosed, then we make a plan, like, okay, well, how is this going to happen? You can't get from point A to point X without going through all the other, A, B, C, D. But you can't go from A to G without, some sort of logical framework. And then I try to have them break it down into sort of what you talked about before, small steps and goals, what they call the SMART goals. They are, I can't even think what it means now. Anyway, can you help me out here?
Yeah, I can never remember S. It's like strategic, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time measured. But I can never remember what the S stands for.
Yes, that's exact. Thank you. I just drew a blank there, but I always ensure that the goals that the clients I work with are that way. And we measure each week how they're doing. And, if some are accomplished, then we'll start some new ones. And I tend to work mostly with women who are about 40 up into their 60s, probably because I've done a lot of work myself, and I'm very comfortable with different things, but somehow I seem to attract those type of women, and they tend to be people who have come out of the corporate world and they want to do their own businesses, but not quite sure how to do it. So I have been, very fortunate to have had quite a lot of good business experience as well, because I worked for a big consulting company at one point, and I learned a lot of really good things from that. So I take what I know and try to pair it up with, the women clients. And then I've had several very wonderful wins with, they start a business or they're in the business, and then they add something to it or take things away that are not working. And then suddenly it's like a meteor. They're just off and running. And it's just wonderful to see.
That's great. I cannot leave this conversation without jumping a little bit into what some people might think is an entirely different conversation, although I hope you can bring us back to how it fits in with what we're talking about. But in your introduction, it says that, and I know for a fact that you practice Reiki and some of the other healing arts. And how did you get involved in that? And how does that help in this whole system of things we've been talking about?
Well, I've always had a deep personal interest in self-development. So I learned Reiki about 20 years ago. I was living in Geneva, Switzerland, and I found that at the end of my workday, I wanted to have something to do, but it was a different culture, different language. So I found a few things, a small group of people that were very compatible, and I learned the techniques of Reiki, and I found that it just fulfilled a need in myself. It's really a process where you help yourself heal and help other people heal. It is something which is very, very personal, and you can just do it by using your thoughts. And the other one that I use, it's called emotional freedom technique, or tapping, or EFT. I learned that about 10 years ago because it was something that the Reiki is good because you can do it in person with someone and you hold your hands over various areas of the body to encourage energy to move, because it a lot of problems they think are caused by energy blockages in the body. And if you can get that energy moving, that gets you going forward. Well, the EFT or tapping is similar, but it is done by a person on themselves, where they tap on different parts of the head, the face, neck, and then arm, repeating a positive affirmations. So it is very, very much different than the other, but it's all linked in that the body has energy meridians in it. And if certain things get stuck because certain organs are associated with certain problems or whatever, if you can get things going again, that can sometimes get someone going forward when they've tried everything and nothing works. And then suddenly they do one of these or have some treatments, from a practitioner, and it is absolutely amazing what happens. And you don't have to believe in it. It just happens.
And that's something that if someone is dealing with frustration and procrastination and fears, something like that could help them to get past those issues and get back going forward with their business, right?
Yep. Like when I work individually with certain clients, I offer that as part of the service that I can do, in that we will do it together. And I teach them how to do tapping, or I can do a Reiki treatment. You can do it remotely at a distance. You don't have to be in person. But I don't offer that as, a standard thing, because people have to be open to that sort of belief, and I don't force it on people. And if they are, then we incorporate that. If not, then I go a bit more traditional route. And I usually like to work with clients for a minimum of 3 months. 6 months is better, but it all depends what the issues are they wish to work on. And but I always like to get that commitment that they're going to be working with me more than 1 or 2 weeks, because you will not see change in that time.
Yeah, I have been a practitioner of Reiki for years, and I can attest to the fact that if it's not that working, I don't know what is, because major things have opened and changed for me since I've been using the Reiki. So again, you're right on the ball with all of this. We are about out of time, so I want to thank you very much for taking this time out of your very busy schedule to chat this afternoon. I sure have learned a lot that I know I'm going to be implementing in my life, because as I mentioned, I have a lot of these issues just like everyone else does. And I'm sure that our listeners have enjoyed hearing all of this as well. Carol, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for more communications and to say, hey, I'd really like to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I encourage people to go to my website, which is thepassionmotivator.com. And I have a contact sheet there where you can put your email in and, a little text about what you'd like to have some help on, or, just make contact on, or even directly by email. My email is coachcaroldavies@gmail.com. So those are the two ways that I can suggest getting in touch.
Okay. And Davies is spelled Davies, right?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you so much. Really, really fascinating information. Of course, anybody listening to this conversation can always reach me at don'twaittillpigsfly.com or on Facebook as the BSU Connector. Tune in if you're interested in these kinds of conversations. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern for another episode on Global Voice Radio. And when we start our business, we think that everyone is going to want what we're selling, right? I know I did. But the better we are at developing our ideal customer, the better those sales will be. We'll be talking about what an ideal customer is next week and how we connect with them to grow our businesses successfully. In the meantime, have a wonderful, successful week and soar higher. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Don't Wait Till Pigs Fly with host Nancy Becker. Join Nancy every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio.